I want to share with you about price indices. Now, price indices measure relative changes in prices of commodities in a given period of time. So it's usually from the base year to the current year. Now, I want you to pick interest in consumer price indices. So the consumer price indices measure relative changes in prices of consumer goods in a given period of time, from the base year to the current year. There are various reasons why we compute price indices, and one of them is to measure the value of money. Now, when we compute price indices, the figure that is average price relative is called the cost of living index. So when the cost of living index is high, money has lost value. When the cost of living index is low, then money has greater value. Number two, it's used to determine the wages of labor. So when the cost of living index is high, as represented by the average price relative, then it means that bosses should increase the wages they pay to labor. However, when the cost of living index is low, it may not be necessary for bosses to increase the wages they pay to labor. Number three, it's used to deflate nominal national income to become or to obtain real national income. Recall that when national income is nominal, then it is calculated at the prevailing prices. So you want to find the real national income which does not have the effects of inflation. So to deflate it, you use the figure that you obtain as the average price relative. So it's the one you divide with the nominal national income, and in that way you have deflated the national income figure, which was nominal, so you get the real national income. Number four, it's used to compare cost of living of people over time. So the cost of living is high whenever the average price relative is high, or the price indices are high. And in another period, we say that the cost of living is low whenever the average price relative is low. Now, when we are computing price indices, there are various steps that we follow. So it is in a logical order. Step number one, we choose a base year where prices were relatively stable. Step number two, we select a basket of goods. It is called a representative basket of goods, and we think that everybody in society consumes those goods. Step number three, we calculate the simple price index for each commodity in the basket. And that is the formula that we use there. The next step, we calculate the average price relative, which we also call the average simple price index. And that's the formula we use. The next step, which is step 6, we attach weights. So we are attaching weights of commodities which are in the basket. Then we calculate the weighted price index using that formula which you see here. And then finally we calculate the average weighted price index using that formula which you see here. So I'm going to use this table as a sample question to help us understand the concept. So from the table, beans, cooking oil and soap are the representative basket of goods. Now remember that we are collecting prices of goods, and those are the prices collected in 2012 and in 2008. And we are tasked to calculate the price relative, average price relative, weighted index, average weighted index. Using this table, where you see the year 2008 and the indice is 100 throughout, it is to tell us that 2008 was the base year. So it literally means that you can come and say that these are base year prices. So it is to guide you, but you never use the details that you see there. So it is simply to guide. So with this table, now you want to calculate the price relative, which we also call the simple price index. You use the formula, price in the current year, divide by price in the base year times 100. So if this is the base year, it literally means that is the current year. So if you go to beans, base current year price is 2,000, divide by the base year price, which is 1,000 times 100, gives you 200. Do not attach any units. You go to the same, compute cooking oil, price in the current year, 4,000, price in the base year, 1,500 times 100. Now, this one has more points after the decimal. We round up to 3 decimal points. So that's why you see here we have 266.666. So if the 6 was continuing, we can say 0.667. But what is important is to round up to 3 decimal points. Now we come to SOP, we do the same, price in the current year, divide by price in the base year, times 100, which gives us 175. The next thing we want to calculate is the average price relative. So what you have to note in price indices, that because it's a procedural thing, your first figure must always be correct. So for us to calculate the average price relative, we still go back to the formula. Summation price relative, which is also called simple price index, divide by the number of commodities. So we are picking from here 200 plus 266.666 plus 175 divided by 3. And the figure we get is that one. You just make sure there are 3 decimal points, if at all the figures that continue after the decimal. So it means that if this first figure is wrong, high chances the indices you calculate are wrong. The other thing that is there for us to note is from this figure here. The figure that has the average price relative is the one that we use when we want to find the cost of living index. So if you ask the cost of living index, it is represented by this figure where the price relative, the summation price relative is divided by the number of commodities. So if you wanted to find out the rate of inflation, you just get that figure and you subtract 100%. So continuing there with our next question, we want to calculate the weighted price index. Recall that we've said once these figures are right, the rest will be all right as long as you know the formulas. So it would mean that our weighted price index, price relative times weight. The price relative is 200. You come and pick the weight from the table. So recall that here we have beans 5, cooking oil 4, soap 1. So when you're picking price relative times the weight, you pick what you calculated, you go back to the table. So that's how we get the 200 times 5, which gives us 1,000. The 266.666 times 4, which was its weight. And we get 1066.664. Even here we are rounding off to 3 decimals. And finally, the soap 175 times its weight, which is 175. Now, when we come to calculate the average weighted index, again it means that to get the right answer, these answers must be correct. So it would be the summation weighted price index, or all these summations, divided by the summation of weights. Now, recall that we had the weights here, 5, 4, and 1. So when we come to calculate our average weighted index, then we are summing up what we got, the 1,166.664 plus 175 plus 5 plus 4 plus 1. And that is the figure you get. So in computing price indices, there may be problems. But most of these problems, We get them by going back to the procedure that we use in computing price indices. For example, if you say choose a base year where prices were relatively stable, the challenge will be it's difficult to choose a base year where prices were relatively stable because prices are always unstable. Number two, from selecting a basket of goods, we find a challenge of selecting a representative basket of goods. But we also see that people have different tastes and preferences. So that's why we say it's difficult to select a representative basket of goods because people have different tastes and preferences. But we are also taking into consideration that the tastes and preferences also change. When we come here collecting retail prices of selected goods, we have a challenge because some prices are determined by bargaining. So it becomes difficult to collect prices because some prices are determined by bargaining. But we also have issues where a region can have different prices for a given commodity different from another region. Now when we come to these bits of computation, it's about the manpower, the skilled labor. So you say it's difficult, incorrect information or limitation in finding information, it needs skilled labor. Or you say limited skills of labor to collect the information and analyze the data. Now, when we come to weights, then we say it's difficult to attach weights because some things are in heaps, other things are in liters, etc. That is all I will share for today.